Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time.
Folks, may the 4th be with you.
Oh.
This seemed like the day of introspection, much like your other major religious holidays of the year, be it Good Friday or, I don't know, Good Friday, we'll just leave it there. Didn't really think this through. It's a day where we sort of really think about our relationship with our Lord and Savior, George Lucas. But here's the question, Simon. What is the current state of the union? What is your vibe around Star Wars in 2024? This is a vibe check conversation. So is the franchise a little more than bantha fodder? Is there a sense the Force is still strong? Should you, Simon Foster, a mature man-ish, still have thoughts on Star Wars? Is it for the kids? Let's talk it through. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to just throw some questions at you. Okay, and we're going to try to get to the heart of this. So,
as a man with some connection to the original film and also the festival director of the Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival, Sydney Science Fiction Film Festival.com.au, this is something that I have some opinion on. So let's roll with this.
Yeah, you're a middle-aged man. Of course you've got an opinion on Star Wars. It's just how it is. Okay, so look, the question I just want to throw at you, first of all, what was the first time, and let's do this quickly, no one cares this much. I just need to establish some, ground rules. When did you first watch Star Wars, and was it a big moment for you, or was it just kind of, it's just a movie you saw?
No, as you point out, I'm a middle-aged man. I saw Star Wars before it was called Star Wars Punctuation A New Hope at the Hoyt's Entertainment Centre. I can even remember what cinema I was in, Cinema 10, which I think was the downstairs cinema. Some of my middle-aged buddies may correct me on that, but I think it was Cinema 10. I saw it with my parents, and it was a life-changing moment in terms of the impact cinema had on me, as it was for so much of my generation. That is my history with the film, and many times since, of course.
Okay, I've got more questions. I've just got to give my own answers just along the way here. Mine, I grew up as a kid in the 80s. It was a VHS staple. So we watched this one on video a whole bunch. I think maybe there was one of those things where it wasn't really available on video for quite some time. Or maybe it was just
its video release was a very big deal. Yeah, it came well after the cinema release of the film.
But maybe it was a thing where it was available as a rental, but you couldn't buy the VHSs maybe or something. But whatever the case was, it was suddenly something that was taped off the TV. And whenever it was on TV, it was a really big deal to sit down and watch Star Wars.
And I should also point out very quickly that the release of The Empire Strikes Back also has significance for me, because my school year went on an excursion to Old Sydney Town at the time on the day of the release, but I couldn't go because I had a doctor's appointment for a skin lesion on my face, for a mole that finally had to be removed. So when that doctor's appointment was over, my mother took me to the Roxy Cinema at Parramatta for the opening day of The Empire Strikes Back. And I remember that vividly, not just because it was The Empire Strikes Back, of course, as a major moment in my young life, but because I got to go to a movie on a Thursday in the middle of the day, on a school day, which was unheard of back then. So it was quite a thrill too.
Cool story, nobody cares. Okay, so ultimately what we've done is we've established that through the 80s, you as a much older man, probably in your mid-40s by this point, and me as a pre-10-year-old, really big deal through the 80s watching Star Wars, and then into the 90s as well. In the 90s, they started introducing probably a few more extended universe stuff with Star Wars, with comics and novels, and I'm assuming you probably didn't really dabble in that stuff too much. I didn't really dabble much in it either. It was kind of around. I read the Thorn trilogy, which is that big book series in the mid-90s. All that came out. But the big moment was in 1999, the release of the first Star Wars movie in what would have been then 15 years, which to me just felt like a lifetime. But really,
that. Oh, for the Star Wars movies after Jedi, yes.
So 83 to 99, Simon. Do some math.
Yep.
Okay.
Got some math.
So about 15 years, which to me felt like forever. And so I think for a lot of us, we all thought this is a major moment. It's been so long, but really it's no different than there's less time between Star Wars movies then as it is between, say, now and that Iron Man movie coming out for Marvel. It's ridiculous in thinking about it. But
sure,
thinking about 1999, it was a very big moment when the film finished screening, what was the general mood in your theater and how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I was ambivalent towards The Phantom Menace. It was also a first day viewing for me. I went along filled with hope and wonder that the thrill of my childhood was going to be recaptured in The Phantom Menace. We should point out that in terms of the impact that the original trilogy had, and certainly that first Star Wars movie, that extended to the collecting the toys for me. I had the Death Star 3D diorama. I had all the Kenner action figures. So this was something that consumed my imagination for the best part of 2 decades. The release of The Phantom Menace just made me realize how far in the past that really was, and that the film that George Lucas had made with The Phantom Menace was very much the vision of not a man really trying to recapture the sort of serials and the action adventure of his boyhood, but much rather comment on the weight given his original trilogy over the years and the introduction of things like intergalactic councils and all the different sort of plot points and
Okay, Simon, we know all of this. We want it's a vibe check conversation. Let's move in. Okay. So 99, it sucked. I recall sitting in the cinema, enthusiasm at the beginning, applause, everyone's crazy for it. At the very end, there was silence. There was one guy clapping. It was fantastic. Best midnight screening I've ever been to. So I think
the
that
midnight
moment.
screening. Wow, I didn't go to the midnight screening. Yeah.
Oh, well, because you're not a real fan. Look, I feel that moment where that one single guy clapped kind of set the mood for where we're heading with Star Wars for the next 25 years, which is that people's feelings on Star Wars have shifted. We went from mass enthusiasm in a time period where there was just less stuff to really get our attention to a period now where there's so many different movies and TV shows and books and video games and sex dungeons and all sorts of stuff that's all vying for our attention. So can Star Wars necessarily occupy that same space? So since then, we've seen Disney purchase the Star Wars brand, franchise, whatever. We've seen 3 sequel movies. We've seen some spin-offs in the way of Solo. We saw there was Rebel 1. Yeah, that's the name of it. We saw that. There was multiple TV programs. Where are you in 2024? Are you excited when there's a new TV show or a movie? And can I split this as a question? Are you excited by the idea of a movie being released in the same way you might be with a TV program?
The phrase "it's not my Star Wars" has certainly been bandied around by many of the OG fans of Star Wars. That's where I'm at in 2024. What was once a must-watch franchise for me, whether it's on the big screen or small screen, is not that anymore. I gravitated towards Rogue One and consider it very much of the OG vibe and feel, and that was an important film for me, and one that sort of recaptured that sense of those thrills that the original series did. But in every other aspect, no, it's not my Star Wars anymore, and I don't have to watch everything that comes down the pipe as I might have done 20 or 30 years ago.
Yeah, so as I think about this, I don't really buy into that idea of it's not my Star Wars anymore, because I don't think that's really necessarily a thing. I think this is a conversation that's really sprung up of a lot of people who are just like, oh, Disney have ruined it, let alone, just think about the fact that of the 6 Star Wars movies that came out before Disney purchased it, really there were only 2 good ones. Let's be real. Come on. Truth telling, maybe third one if you're as generous as I am, talking about the Revenge of the Sith film, which I actually think is actually generally pretty good. But yeah, most Star Wars hasn't actually been very good. So as I get older and I realize this and embrace that, much like I've embraced the Force, largely, I look at the new Star Wars stuff when it comes out, and I am not necessarily super excited to go and see everything anymore. I'm perfectly happy if there's a series to start. I'll watch 1 or 2 episodes, and if I'm not really digging it that much, I haven't gone back and watched the last couple of episodes of the Obi-Wan show. I don't think I saw more than the first 2 or 3 episodes of the Ahsoka TV program, but I do keep meaning to get back to that one. It seemed kind of okay. But I don't know, I'm not super excited by much of it. I really, really like the Andor program. I thought that was super smart and really played in universe in interesting ways. But maybe that's just the thing when you've got a glut of content around it, which is that, there's going to be some stuff that's actually really quite good, and other stuff, like everything else in the world, is just going to be a little bit average. It's not that Star Wars isn't for me anymore, or that, it's not my Star Wars anymore. It's just that maybe some Star Wars is for me now, and other stuff is just generic pap.
All right, we got anywhere else to go with the Star Wars chit-chat? May the 4th be with you, everyone. I hope you enjoy the day, whatever Star Wars means for you, or enjoyed the day as this goes out. So, I'm keen to see what comes down under the regime of Kathleen Kennedy, who's taken over the Star Wars franchise in terms of the creative vision.
Sorry, do you feel that we haven't seen enough from Kathleen Kennedy to really get a gauge of that one, Simon?
Well, I just think she's got an overall vision for the future that is taking shape, and I'm keen to see what sort of legacy she leaves.
Simon, I would argue and say that she doesn't have a vision for Star Wars at all, and she's just been throwing stuff at the wall for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think she's tapped into what Lucas started and is trying to bridge the gap between what the original George Lucas vision was and what Disney wants to do with the property. But we'll see how it plays out.
Look, I've never heard a more generous phrase in my life. But anyway, let's go with that. Folks, let's move on with the podcast.